right, guys, I'm Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here with Paul Kopp. He is the Director of Supplier Marketing for Power Products over at Sager Electronics. And today he is going to talk to us a little bit about challenges when sourcing power supplies.
And this has historically been a very challenging time, correct, Paul?
That's true. That's true.
100%. It is. It's been extremely challenging to say the least. I've been in this industry it'll be 28 years in March, and I personally have never seen anything like this, nor have any of the people that I've spoken to.
Well, what are you seeing out there, Paul? I mean, what are some of the challenges we're seeing in terms of sourcing power supplies?
Sure. I think from a sourcing perspective, there are probably three key things that have really impacted the market. One is lead times. The second is pricing and inflation. And the third is transportation, lead time, and costs. All of those areas seem to kind of balloon over the last couple of years, which isn't unusual. I mean, we're seeing that across the electronics industry, but it seems like it's really had a significant impact in the power space.
That's a lot of things. Maybe we should break some of these down, right? So what are you seeing with the lead time issue?
Sure. So power supplies, they're complex. There's a lot of components. On the AC to DC side, you can have hundreds of different components in that bill of materials, and your lead time is going to be a factor of the longest lead time of the components. You couple that with production and capacity, and now you've got all sorts of problems. So what we've seen is a situation where lead times typically would be 8 to 12 weeks, slowly crept to 15 to 20 to 24 to 26. Now we're seeing 40 to 52 and beyond. So it's been a challenge for customers, especially ones that were in the mindset of, hey, we want just in time. They went from just in time to, oh no, just get me product. And that's a major shift. You have to change your business, and that's impacted our suppliers.
How have businesses changed from going, now there's this longer lead time versus that just in time purchasing?
Sure. It's an excellent question. So what we saw pre-pandemic, lead time change was that there was an understanding from customers that distributors were going to have inventory available, that customers were typically going to place product for order at lead time, in most cases less. There were inventory agreements made with customers and distributors around bonded inventory or forecasted in inventory. So the customer was really hoping that, hey, I'm going to limit the amount of time I have to have product on my books so that it can show up, be ready for manufacturing. And it's a very, very tight process, and it's a great way to manage your business until you run into a problem like this. And then once you hit the wall, and it's really hard to reel it back in. So customers had to adapt, and they had to say, okay, we have to look at all of the lead times that are in our system. We now have to look at buffer inventory. So if there's a spike from our customer, we can then handle that spike. So it definitely was a massive change. Just in time was really, really tight, and customers were really grinding on distributors and manufacturers to make sure that lead times were met, and warehouses weren't full, and it worked out pretty well. But again, when you bump into this situation, it's very hard to recover. Similar to the toilet paper situation, right? Once everybody wants it and there's not enough there, it becomes problematic.
So did you find that companies were, I don't want to say like hoarding, power supplies, right? But did you find companies were over ordering when there were first shortages to make sure they were able to produce product in the future?
We have not. It's interesting because if you look at the cycle, we haven't gotten to the point where the double ordering would come into play, because people are still scrambling to get product. At the end of the cycle, that's when you'll find out the people that were hoarding the inventory or the people that double ordered. But right now, everyone's still scrambling to get their hands on what they can get their hands on. So we're still kind of in the middle, or even closer to the beginning of this process than we are to the end. So I do think down the road, things will normalize. And when it does, that's when you'll find out. things will slow down because customers will say, nope, I've got 7 months of inventory on the shelf,
Right.
or, I've got X amount on order already. And that's where things will start to kind of regulate again.
Right. Catch up. Yeah.
And I do think down the road, just in time will come back into play, but I think it's going to take a little while. Suppliers as well, years.
Now, you're a distributor over there at Sager. How are you guys handling this? How are you trying to minimize the impact of some of these crazy lead times out there?
Sure. So, being a specialized distributor in power and thermal, we recognized early on when we saw that lead times were starting to stretch that we needed to expand our pipelines, expand our breadth of inventory to hopefully minimize what we could for our key customers. And, the goal was to take care of our key customers, but also bring in new customers. And I think we've been able to do that over the last couple of years. And it really is a function of having multiple pieces to this. One is having a great technical team. The other is having that inventory support, having world-class suppliers, and lastly, having a strong marketing communication effort that really reinforces all of that.
Now, you mentioned transportation time. How does that correlate with lead time?
Sure. Just like the normal lead time stretched, transportation has as well. The historical transportation, if you were going to say Southeast Asia, get a boat ocean shipment, it would typically take about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks to get product from Asia to Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's now ballooned out to 12 to 14 to 16 weeks.
Wow.
It's very hard to plan for that type of change. So that too has been a major problem. And on top of that, when people got into trouble in the past, it was pretty easy to authorize an air shipment. The problem with air shipments is they've, in some cases tripled, quadrupled. It's just really cost prohibitive in some cases to say, yep, we're going to move it from ocean to air.
Right.
The other thing is a lot of these power supplies, they're heavy. They're big, they're bulky, they're heavy. So you've got weight, you've got size, and you've got price. So it's definitely challenging.
Well, I mean, we've talked about lead times, transportation, cost, inflation. I think we're not limited to just these challenges. I'm pretty sure there are more. I mean, just off the top of my head, what about tariffs, right? I mean, are tariffs an issue now when sourcing power supplies?
Unfortunately, yes. We were introduced to tariffs, and thankfully the market figured out how to deal with those. And I think we did a pretty good job pre-pandemic. And it feels like those tariffs are not going to be going away anytime soon based on the political environment that we're in. And one of the biggest challenges to power supplies in particular is that most of the power supplies were manufactured in China.
Okay.
So by having that manufacturing base in China, most customers were having to deal with those tariffs. And as a distributor, we were hit with those tariffs being the importer of record. And like manufacturers, we have to pass those on to customers. Customers then have to pass them on to their end customers. So it's been challenging from that standpoint. But what we've seen is we've got some really smart and strong manufacturers who've said we might need to diversify manufacturing so that we can provide the same product quality, but not have it made in China for the North American market, specifically the U.S. So we've got companies like Meanwell, we've got companies like Advanced Energy, companies like Box, we've got companies like Excelsis, who have said, we've got to diversify, we've got to build in other locations, either in Asia or Mexico, that will help to alleviate the burden of those tariffs.
Now, does warranty play a role in the sourcing of power supplies?
Absolutely, it really does. We just talked about pricing and how pricing has gone up and what the impact of that pricing is. And when you're an engineer or you're designing the end product, you have to consider things like price to performance and how long is this product going to be in the market. And if I price this too high or I have too firm requirements, it's going to be an issue. one of the ways that Sager gets around this is by having a very diversified set of suppliers. We've got all sorts of different products that have different warranty periods. We've got warranties from 1 year with most manufacturers, 1 to 2, all the way up to an unlimited warranty with a supplier like GDK Lambda.
Wow.
So from my own knowledge then, the warranty, are you saying that since they have these warranties, they're also now short on kind of fixing or replacing pre-existing purchased items?
No, I think it really comes down to more of the sourcing decision.
Okay.
If I have 3 or 4 different power supplies,
Okay.
how important is that warranty to me? And what it typically comes down to is price. I can buy one power supply with a 1-year warranty, and it'll have a price of X.
Okay.
And you have another power supply that has a 5-year warranty. It might be that costs X times 1 or times 2, so that you're paying more in most cases for an extended warranty. The reason why we've got multiple suppliers, multiple solutions, is then customers can determine what the right fit is for that price to function ratio.
So if an engineer is designing stuff, right, why would they choose like something with a 1-year warranty versus a 5-year warranty?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was thinking that myself.
I think that's what you're trying to ask.
Yeah.
That's right.
Sure. I think the question there is, what is the runtime for that product?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that's going to be running 24/7 and it's critical that it won't ever fail? And, you think about a robotics application where a robot is delivering product or doing something, or in the medical field, right? Medical lasers. You need to make sure that you've got the best product with the best warranty. Usually when a power supply breaks down, it's either due to a fan or a capacitor or something in that power supply. If you have a critical application, you need to make sure that you're sourcing the best quality with the longest warranty. Some of the other things like consumers, how many different small wall wart power supplies you probably have in your house today. You got probably hundreds of them. They're really now disposable items. So I would say, with those, that's typically a much shorter lead time because they're replaced very often.
Okay, I understand. And you bring up medical, which reminds me of kind of the safety considerations there. And do safety standards kind of come into play then when you're sourcing power supplies?
Absolutely. So most of our customers are selling products throughout the globe. And a lot of different countries have different safety standards, different safety requirements. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to keep up with those because they're ever changing. And one of the things that Sager Electronics does is we stay on top of those with our manufacturers. And we've got a team of technical experts, our power supply engineers who go out and they actually understand and can help designing a product with the right safety certifications for your end application.
So now you also mentioned power supply experts. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Sure. So we've got a group of a team, our power supply sales engineers, PSEs, that are very technical. They've got double E's in most cases. They're out in the field, in mm-hmm. each one of our service centers locally, working with customers on design efforts, pre and post, and just making sure that they're really supporting the customer from a trusted advisor standpoint around designing in and helping the customer understand what's going on in the market.
So how are they kind of working? Do you have an example of how they're working on, out in the field to combat some of these challenges? So this is not available. How are they working with them specifically?
Sure, that's a great question. So we've seen a lot of what we would call second sourcing, right? Because right now, what your primary power supply source was may not be available. Mm-hmm. There's a chip or a MOSFET or something that the primary manufacturer cannot get. We're involved in finding a drop-in replacement. Now, it's not possible in every situation, but what we're finding is based on that line card that I keep referencing, that we're able to find customers solutions that will help them minimize that lead time with a second source that will help alleviate that problem.
So Sager does a lot of custom assembly as well. I mean, can we talk a little bit about that? I mean, I know you guys have a facility down in Texas that we hear about a lot.
Sure. So I would say we like to call it, custom value-added assembly. What we do is we take our franchise suppliers' components and then we do additional value-add work with them. We do everything from very simple modifications to connector changes and changes around output voltage to modular configurable power supplies, all the way up to much bigger power sub-assemblies where you've got almost like a box build with sheet metal, connectorization, all of that. So we can actually really do the whole thing from start to finish with an engineering design, 3D drawings, you name it, we can do the whole thing. And we've got a team that's very strong in that area down in Texas, and we've got support of the PSCs as well.
So Sager has really seemed to specialize in the area of power conversion. Can you talk a little bit deeper about that?
Sure. We're part of the TTI family of specialists, and prior to the acquisition of TTI, we were kind of, I would say, dabbling in power supplies. We probably did, $15, $20 million a year in sales, but we saw that there was a position in the market for us, and that if we embraced that part of the specialization, then we had an opportunity for growth that was different than what TTI was doing, what Mauser was doing. And so we decided we were going to build a plan around being a lead power supply distributor in North America. And we've been very lucky to have the support of TTI. And through that acquisition, we've then been able to acquire other companies, build our depth, our strength, and we're looking to continue to grow in this area, both through acquisition, through new suppliers, you name it.
All right, can we put you on the spot, because we heard that you are being recognized by Meanwell as their distributor of the year for 2021. Yes. So we are going to talk about that, because I think that's a great. I mean, that's a great accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so we are honored and humbled to receive that award this year. It's been something we've been working towards for several years. Meanwell is a world-class manufacturer of power supplies. They really have done an incredible job in growing and supporting. And I will say they've been very, very, very helpful during the pandemic. They really understand the challenges of our customers, of the distributors, and they've gone out of their way to do things that some other manufacturers really haven't done. So kudos to them for being just a world-class partner in this. And again, we're very, very pleased to receive that award.
So, okay, another question. We'll put you on the spot. So for 2022, right, what else can we expect from Sager for customer support with power supplies?
Sure. I would say we're going to continue with our strategy, and that is to be the best distributor of power conversion components. So, I mentioned power supplies, but we're also in the battery value add business. So we do battery packs, we do battery connectorization. We want to grow in that area. We've got a facility in Lisle, Illinois. We're looking to expand our line card in batteries to really round out what we can do there. So I would say we're going to continue to evaluate line card with both battery and power and add new technologies as they come in. We are going to continue to support the business with marketing efforts, doing things like this that we're doing today. We're going to continue with the expertise that we have in the field. We feel like it's very important that we have technical experts close to the customer in the region that they're in, working in that time zone, speaking the same language. So that for us is very important. And then the value added piece is critical. it really rounds out our entire strategy because we can just do more than just order fulfillment.
Right. All right, Paul, we always like to look at the future before we wrap up with anyone. So if you look at 2022, what is your outlook, okay, for these challenges that we've talked about that are facing buyers and engineers when it comes to sourcing? I mean, does it look like it's going to get better? Are there some improvements coming? What's your outlook there?
Sure. I wish I had really good news, and I don't. The way it looks now is things are not starting to get better. There's still a lot of challenges ahead. I think just from what we're seeing from suppliers and from the market in general is maybe this time next year, things will start to turn a corner. Okay. I do think what we'll see first is the transportation issues start to get better. I think once they get better, then we'll start to see improvements in other areas. That's assuming we don't have another variant and that's not something else that makes us take a step back. But I do think over time, the supply-demand fluctuations will start to smooth out a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's so much built-up demand. It's going to take quite a while for our suppliers and their suppliers to really catch up to this. What we're hearing is that a lot of these suppliers are, almost full capacity. So you got full capacity plus long lead times. It's going to be an extended process.
Okay, well, Sager is there to help along the way, which is the good news. So there's something.
Absolutely. So Sager is definitely here. We want to be your go-to power supply distributor. We want to be that trusted advisor. And we've been very fortunate to engage with a lot of new customers over the last couple of years. We want to keep that going.
Brian, do you have anything else for Paul today?
No, I don't. Well, thank you for joining us, Paul. Where else can we learn more about Sager and the power supplies?
You can contact your local sales office, or you can go www.sager.com or www.power.sager.com to learn more information.
Thanks so much, Paul. We really appreciate your time today.
No problem. Thank you, guys.